Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic booze, there's a bar in far Bombay. Come fly with
Hi there. I'm posting this video to help out a few friends of mine that I know are looking to travel this summer, some of them being very good art friends of mine. I could write all this out in detail. Besides, videos are more fun, and I get to say hi to y'all. Hi y'all, I got purple hair. At the very young age of, I would say about 12 or 13 years old, I first went out to New Mexico to visit my aunt and my cousin. First flight with my grandmother. The second flight out to see them was the next summer. I went there for summer visits. I went by myself. Such a rebel, right? Not. Since those trips, the first two to New Mexico, I went 2 more times. After that, Portland, Oregon, and I don't know. I've lost track of how many planes I've been on. It's really been that many. So, yeah. I have a list of tips and tricks. It's divided in part 1 and part 2. First thing you do when purchasing tickets online, and I highly recommend searching online. Kayak is one I've used. Searches a bunch all at once. Other sites do that as well. Pick and choose. That's just one I recommend that has worked for me in searching out one of the lower price flights, as well as Orbitz. I just went there recently and got my last ticket for a trip. If you put enough time in, you will find a cheaper deal, but there are some tricks in finding a cheaper deal, and here's what I've learned from other people who have traveled a lot more than I have. Now, when you're hunting for your tickets, you'll return to a site several times over the course of a couple months. Keep in mind, if you can avoid purchasing them like the week of or 2 weeks before, that's kind of a red area. You're going to get higher prices. There is really no way to know for sure when is the earliest in getting a ticket that it can be really cheap. I mean, you could purchase tickets way in advance, like half a year in advance, and still not get the best deal. It fluctuates all the time. On your browser, there is a way to empty the cache or cookies. When you're searching all these sites repeatedly at different times of the day and such, you need to remember to go back every so often and delete the cache or cookies. Those sites have like some sort of tracker. They can tell how often and which flights that you've been looking at, and they may keep a price pretty high depending on which flight you're looking at. I mean, there's all different companies that may or may not look at the cache or whatever you've been checking. It's just, in theory, something that you should try to do once in a while as you're looking for a ticket. It betters the chances that if they are checking, they won't see as much when you're repeatedly looking online. You are searching out your final last minute check, perhaps on a Tuesday night, Tuesday afternoon. You tend to find better prices around that time, or just check on Tuesdays until you're ready to purchase. There's a reason for that. Weekends, try to avoid. That is probably the worst time, depending on airlines. Most of them, though, weekends aren't a good thing. So you have a flight picked out, and you're pretty flexible with the dates. Well, that's a good thing if you are flexible. I understand not everyone can leave on a weekday, or they have to leave on a weekend. That's okay. But when you schedule your flight to leave, if you can make it on a Wednesday, any time of the day, that's a good thing. Here's why. Flights are charging a lot less on the hump day of the week. Why is it? I don't exactly know. It's just something that's very common. I've even noticed in playing around with dates on trips I've had in the past, I've had a lot, they tend to change the price just a smidgen to a lot. There's somewhat of a difference when you change your date from maybe a Thursday or a Tuesday to a Wednesday when you take off. And also, it may affect the date that you come back. So if you come back on a Wednesday, that's also a possible perk. So try it and see. And let me say this again if I haven't said it enough. Play with your dates. If you are only staying for a week, don't forget the first day, depending on how far you're traveling, like say it's clear across the country like I do, from California to Pennsylvania, you need to keep in mind that it may be an all-day thing, the first day and the last. So to make a 7-week visit be a 7-week visit, add 2 more days for flight. I can't hold my fingers, they're kind of... If you tend to be a forgetful person, kind of like me, print out your itinerary or write it down and have it somewhere where you can always see it every other day and remind yourself, hey, be ready, your trip is coming. I usually remember, but it's also important to know when your flight leaves so you can alert people. Say you get a phone call from someone who's going to pick you up or meet you there. You need to tell them so you have it in front of you. Hey, yeah, there's the time. Simple enough, right? Probably one of the most important things to do once you have a ticket and it's getting close to fly time, call ahead and check during bad weather seasons, because this actually did happen to me. The last flight I was on, it was in the winter time, and had I not called ahead, I wouldn't have been aware that my flight was actually canceled. But they do alert you through email. Always important, call ahead or check email for weather alerts or any changes in flight, because other places may have bad weather even though you have bright sunny weather. We had sunny weather at my parents'. Elsewhere, it was storming and planes were shut down. They asked me over the phone when I'd like to reschedule. I called the number in the email that they said to call. Sometimes they may call you depending on the airline. You'd have to check with that email that you receive. It all depends. When they ask you to reschedule your flight that's been canceled, there's no extra charge. And the last thing to consider, changes happen all the time. Traveling can be kind of nerve-wracking, especially if you're not seasoned like I am. But just go with the flow. That's the thing to remember when you're traveling. If you don't let things just happen and just deal with it as they come to you, you're not going to have a good time. Easy for me to say, right? I'm young, I don't get tired out, I'm not old, I don't need assistance, I'm not disabled, but there's people there who can help. They're very knowledgeable. Just get them. Changes happen at layovers. And one issue that has come up quite often in a few layovers that I've experienced, when they overbook a plane. Now the reason they do this is because the smaller planes don't always fill. They have less people flying to the airport, such as the one I go to in Pennsylvania. It's more common, like I said, the little planes. They offer vouchers to another trip. You get so much money off. I believe it's different every time. They offer so much money. But that they're asking you to stay off the plane that you were normally scheduled to be on, and instead you get the voucher as reward for volunteering. That's only if you volunteer. And then they will provide transportation either later that day to another city that's nearby, kind of, like maybe 200 miles to 100 miles away. It depends. Or you might not even get a flight. You might get a bus that takes you somewhere, like an airport. And then you go from that airport. Or hopefully it takes you to your final destination. You don't have to worry about planes, but it's always different. And that's not always a good thing if it's like the holidays and people are depending on you to be there and they trudged through snow and made it there safely only to find out you're going to be in New York instead of Pennsylvania. It's especially important during the holidays when you have people that you'll be depending on as transportation to talk with them ahead of time. If that should come up where it's overbooking and you might want that voucher, it's not a big deal. It's just a bonus for volunteering. Sometimes they will have to take people who do not volunteer, and I don't think they get those vouchers. They just get their flight that they need to get them where they're originally trying to get to. So if you can avoid them, I recommend avoiding them. That makes flying more of a pain, really. If there's anything you'd like to add as a helpful tip, especially during this first stage of getting ready to fly, let me know. Leave a comment. I'll let others know who are trying to get ready in a hurry to all these trips I know about. And have safe travels and watch part 2. It'll be up soon. Thank you.
Pack up, let's fly away.